What's going on, my fellow degenerates? Week 9 is upon us, and it is Halloween. Yes, we have a Halloween night game this year. We got the Jets and the Texans. Jets, pretty spooky season this so far. They look terrible, bottom of the AFC East after getting beaten by the New England Patriots. Um, I highly expected the Texans to win tonight, but they're banged up, especially at the receiver position as well. So I think we get a vintage Joe Mixon game, putting up 150 yards and getting 2 scores. Anyways, on this episode, I'll dive into the news of the week. A lot of this stuff I already touched on in our last episode. Deontay Johnson, Anthony Richardson, Joe Flacco, Stephon Diggs. But I've had a little bit more time to digest it and think about it. So I'll give you my updated thoughts. Then in the picks portion, I'm going solo this week. No Dan. I'll go over both of our picks from last week. Um, I knocked it out of the park last week. I went 6 for 8. Yes, 6 for 8 on my picks. That's 75%, like absolute banger week. So Dan did well as well too, but he's not here to brag about it. So keep eyes on me. Let's go with my picks again this upcoming week. So speaking of that, week 9, our picks are all locked in. Some of them are a little more risky this week, but we still got some guys that you should reliably trust and put in your starting lineups. Uh, Definitely coming down the stretch here in fantasy football, so you can't make any mistakes right now. Anyways, that's about all I got. So, hope you guys enjoy the video. As always, good luck in all of your fantasy football endeavors, unless you're in one of our leagues, because then luck ain't gonna save you. Peace.
In audio.
And 3, 2, 1, action. Welcome back, my fellow degenerates. We are here for another episode, Week 9 preview. So we just did our Week 8 review, went over some of the news there. Now it's time to move on to Week 9. Hopefully, you guys got the playoffs in your sights. It's not too late to turn things around, hopefully, unless you're like 1-7. So as you guys can see, it's just me tonight. It's actually Halloween right now. I'm just trying to get this episode out. Yeah, so we're just flying solo. Earlier this week in our last episode, we went over some of the news that we touched on. Deontay Johnson going to the Ravens, Anthony Richardson bench, Diggs out for the season. So I'm going to touch on those again briefly, and then we'll get into last week's picks by me and Dan, as well as this upcoming week's picks for us. So first thing, Deontay Johnson, like we previously mentioned, this is very not exciting for Deontay. The only other update we've gotten here is the organization has come out and they said that Zay Flowers and Bateman are still their 1 and 2. Obviously, this is just trying to save face. If they really believe that uh, Zay, I can see the argument for, but Bateman, I mean, we all saw that clip of him getting hit in the goddamn face mask last week. So they really think he's going to be better than Deontay. That's obviously not the case. They said they wanted to bring in Deontay Johnson for his punt return abilities. He hasn't returned a punt in nearly 4 years. So I don't know what's going on with that, but I still don't love this move for Deontay. Obviously, it helps Lamar. And then in terms of the Panthers, you still just don't want to play anyone. We have some exciting young guys there like Xavier Legette and Jalen Coker, but they're really only for dynasty. You're not looking at them for normal redraft leagues. And I'll actually just jump to this now while I'm on the Panthers is Jonathan Brooks has been practicing in full. Dave Canales has yet to designate him for a return this week, but given the how things are going so far, all things are pointing to a Jonathan Brooks doubt in the NFL this week against the Saints. So keep a close eye on that. It means a lot for Chuba Hubbard there. I'm not necessarily too excited to start Brooks, but he's going to be on a snap share, I assume, and limited snap play. So the other big news, obviously, Anthony Richardson benched, Joe Flacco named the starter. Um, at this point, everyone's seen everything about Anthony Richardson to taking himself out of the game and all that stuff. And we have his teammates still supporting him, but this is great news for Michael Pittman owners, Josh Downs owners. I think it's still good for JT. Obviously, AR hasn't been great this year, but the threat of him vulturing touchdowns is no longer there. And from what we've seen in Flacco, this offense moves a lot better with him. So, better team. That's a better spot for JT. So, We love having Flacco here. I think it's really exciting to see Pittman and Downs. Downs looked like the wide receiver one here with Flacco so far, but obviously we'll see as the season goes on. And then last news we touched on Stephon Diggs out for the year with the ACL tear. Uh, as you guys know, Nico Collins still out. Um, I don't think this propels Tank Dell into wide receiver one category by any means. CJ Stroud and the Texans offense outside of Joe Mixon has been struggling a lot. So I think Stroud's probably throwing for like 200 yards, maybe TDs, if that. So I think Diggs, or not Diggs, Tank Dell now, we're like hoping for like 80 yards and maybe a touchdown on like 6 to 8 targets. No one else there we're excited about. But that's about all the news for the week. Obviously, we'll pay attention to a lot of these injuries and see who's going to play this week or not. Drake may be cleared to play from concussion this week, so keep tabs on that. Tyrone Tracy as well, dealing with the concussion status currently unknown. All right, so we'll move back to our week 8 predictions last week. We actually kicked this one right in the ass. I mean, we both went 6 for 8 here. One of our misses was the same player, was Tua. Obviously, Tua had like an all right game, just fantasy wise, it was only like 15 points. So we aren't going to like stretch the truth. Like it was a miss for sure. We both thought he was going to knock it out of the park. But otherwise, Dan picked Bo Nix, who had a great game. I picked Kirk Cousins, great game. Uh, J.K. Dobbins performed well. The only other misses we had was Dan had Ray Davis. Obviously, he had some minor involvement. It's kind of expected. I don't really know why Dan's picking these backup running backs. I guess he's like, oh, they're only projected 5 points, but they don't play. So I don't know what that is. And then I had Jake Ferguson miss. He had a bit of a tough game, just not a ton of volume. So he only had a few catches for sub 40 yards. So not quite hitting the projection, but he still put up 8 points. So that's serviceable. But other than that, like a lot of these guys were exciting to see. Cedric Tillman's still doing well. Again, after the 1 week, we thought it could have been a fluke week, not worth picking up, but now Jameis is Jameis. So one of the funnier stats I saw earlier today was Deshaun Watson in his 19 games he started for the Browns is 0 games of 300 yards. And between Jameis and Flacco's 7 games they've started now, they have 6 of those with 300 passing yards. So you can't miss out a chance to shit on just Deshaun when you have it. So other than that, Kincaid, Kate Otten, and Joku all balled out last week. The National Tight End Day was beaten to death, but they really did do a great job. So shout out there. And let's move on to week 9 predictions. So much like I had 2 weeks ago, Dan isn't with me, so he relayed his picks in for the week. We're going to go over these. Um, yeah, so I haven't looked at these yet, so bear with me a little bit. But let's see. Dan's first pick is, oh, yeah, he's going with Bo Nix again. So, I mean, Bo just had a great game. I think I mean, what's not to love about Bo Nix this year? He's getting the rushing upside. Not this week in particular, but they just looked great. Obviously, they played a shitty team, but let's see who they're playing this week. Why is this? Oh, they're playing the Ravens this week. So this is kind of a ballsy pick. All right. This is much better than Dan's normal cupcake pick. So yeah, we got Bo Nix against the Ravens. This could be a good game. I mean, Denver's defense has been stellar so far this year, so I'm hoping for an exciting matchup here. And then Dan's flex play quarterback of the week is we got Justin Herbert against the Cleveland Browns. I love Herbert. He looks so good out there. So yeah, I think it looks good, but still he's got not a lot of weapons. We'll see how Jameis plays. I think last week was a great week for Jameis, but I'm not expecting 300 yards again out of him, especially against this Chargers D. For my quarterback picks this week, my first one, Sam Darnold. He's playing the Colts. Obviously, they had the Thursday night game, so they had a little bit of a mini bye week. I think they get things back together a little bit, as well as he has TJ Hawkinson playing this week, joining back into the fold, and TJ won't be on a snap count. So the outside of Justin Jefferson, Jalen Naylor, Jordan Addison have been very disappointing this season. I mean, Naylor, we didn't really expect much out of, but I thought Addison was going to have a great year. I thought he was going to ascend into that like Devonta Smith, Jalen Waddle tier of being like oh, this guy could be a one, but he's just behind an absolute stud. That's clearly not the case. Jalen Waddle doesn't even have 4 catches in a single game this year. So, yeah, he's had a tough go of it. But Hawkinson being there really propels Darnold this week. So he's my pick. And then my other pick of the week is I thought he was going to be out for a little bit longer, but all things are pointing to Derek Carr being back this week. So he's probably available in most of your leagues, and he's playing the Carolina Panthers. So, and this is still the Bryce Young Carolina Panthers. So, yeah, I love Carr here. I think the whole team is going to feast. Um, Moving on to running backs this week, Dan selected Devin Singletary. I have to imagine that this is solely if Tyrone Tracy is out because ever since Singletary had his first injury woes, Tracy has come in, taken over, looking amazing. So they are playing the Commanders. Not the best defense, but especially against the run. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really like this pick, to be honest, Dan. And it's just I think Tracy might be out with a concussion. I did see one update today that things are looking good for him, so I'm out on this one. And then Dan's flex pick of the week was Chase Brown versus the Raiders. I do think Chase Brown has won the starting job, but I don't think it's I don't think it's like a 70-30 split or 75-25. I think it's much more of like a 60-40, 55-45 split. So not too exciting, but not a bad matchup against the Raiders. And wow. Okay, so this pick really surprises me. Dan just traded this guy in one of our leagues to get rid of him. Is in tonight's game Devontae Adams versus the Houston Texans. Uh, I think I don't want to speak for Dan, but I did see Alan Lazard got sent to the IR, so it really is just Garrett Wilson and Devontae there. So I think Dan's just hoping that the Jets aren't completely down and out, which I kind of agree is the case. I think it's exciting to see them struggle, but I don't think that they're going to continue being the last place in the AFC East. So we like it for Devontae. I also think his projection in full PPR is only like 13 points right now. So that should be a much easier number to hit. And then his flex play is Jackson Smith and Jigba. They are playing the Rams Sunday afternoon. I think DK should be back this week, but I'm so out on JSN. Um, he just has not looked great this year. Last week without DK there, it's not exciting. So I don't, I'm just so out on JSN. Not a huge fan. I think DK's back. So I think the Rams are just going to beat the brakes off the Seahawks. They're going to come back down. So, yeah, I'm sticking away from JSN. And then I'll hop back over to my running backs this week. We got DeAndre Swift. Swift has looked so good these past couple of weeks. Even if the Bears aren't putting up a ton of points, he's getting some long runs. He's getting the passing game involvement. 100 plus yards now a few weeks in a row, and they're playing the Cardinals. So we like that a lot. I think he keeps it up. And then this one was kind of a surprise pick. I'm playing Bucky Irving this week. They're playing the Kansas City Chiefs, who have an amazing defense. If you guys watched the game against the Raiders last week, uh, that one instance where the Raiders got the ball on the 1 yard line, they couldn't score a rushing touchdown after running the ball 4 times. Chiefs just stuffed them every play. So this isn't necessarily a matchup you like at all. It's probably the worst matchup. But that being said, last week, the involvement we saw from Bucky compared to Rashad White is what I really like. So Rashad obviously got the touchdown, had a good game. But Bucky had 16 opportunities between rushes and targets, and then Rashad only had 12. So Bucky had 7 catches for 40 yards. He gets that, like he's just golden. So I do like him as a flex play. Obviously, if you have better guys, I'm not like propelling him up the rankings saying you need to start Bucky as your RB2, but he's a good consideration. And I'm buying into this Joe Flacco hype. I mean, I don't think you even have to buy in, right? We've seen him play a couple of times this year. So Michael Pittman is one of my starts this week. They're playing the Vikings. Vikings just got torched by Cooper Cup, Matt Stafford, and Puka Nakua. So Joe Flacco, Josh Downs, and Michael Pittman, I'd say they're pretty equal trio. If you so, um, Yeah, I don't know. I think Pittman gets a lot of involvement. They're going to throw the ball a lot of times. Flacco isn't going to afraid to throw it, and he has no rushing upside, so he's not running the ball. And then I'm going to move over also similar tier. Actually, this guy's probably a little higher, definitely a higher tier so far. Moving forward, we'll see with Pittman, but DJ Moore. DJ Moore is going up against the Arizona Cardinals. They're terrible pass defense. So I think this game is going to be a shootout, and I think it's going to be a fun game to watch. So we're starting DJ Moore in every league we own him. No, not benching him anywhere. So let's move over to tight end. So looking at tight end, Dan sent me Evan Ingram and Sam Laporta as his two starts of the week. So Evan Ingram, he should be starting in every single league this like looks like Brian Thomas Jr. is probably going to play this week. Christian Kirk is out for the year. So if you guys remember earlier in the off season, we kept talking about Evan Ingram, Evan Ingram, Evan Ingram last year in tight end premium leagues, different format, but he was the number one tight end last year, just based off target volume. And all of his targets came towards the end of the season when Christian Kirk was injured. So I could see that repeating once again. Brian Thomas Jr., he has a chest injury. I believe he's supposed to play. So we'll monitor that closely. If he doesn't play, Evan Ingram's probably like my tight end number three. Or actually, tight end number two this week. Brock Bowers, Kittle has a bye. So, but he's right up there with those guys. I wouldn't have anyone else over him based on pure volume. And then Sam Laporta, dude. Sam Laporta's had a struggle this year. He's actually, I have one funky format league. Um, it's just a 10 team league though with extra flex spots. But Sam Laporta was on the waiver wire, which is like he was actually on the waiver wire, which we joked about a couple weeks ago, but he was there. And I didn't pick him up either. Granted, I have Jake Ferguson and TJ Hawkinson, so I'm not really excited to drop one of them for him, but I don't know. I'll probably be like, why didn't I do that? It's Sam Laporta. So they're playing the Packers. The Lions, it's hard to take anything away from the Lions. They're just so good this year. Obviously, last week, the game, a lot of it came from their 250 kick return yards. So that's obviously not a normal thing. Hard to read anything from that. So Laporta against the Packers this week, we'll see. It's just so much volume there to spread out. Like even Amon Ra just not getting a ton of involvement. He got a touchdown, which saved him last week. So we'll see. Um, and I've mentioned his name quite a few times this episode. My tight end pick this week, TJ Hawkinson. He's back. Last year, he had the most points per game in the tight end position. Darnold looks good. Addison sucks. Naylor sucks. JJ looks good. Indy defense sucks. So, yeah, we like Hawkinson this week. If you waited all year to play him, this is finally your chance. So, yeah. And then my tight end flex pick of the week is this is a guy who comes around every year. Every year he comes back and we're still surprised. He's winning people matchups. He's scoring 20, 30 points occasionally. And it's just the most frustrating player. Um, and he's poised to do it once again is Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill is healthy again. He is playing and he is playing the Carolina Panthers. So it's the old faithful back to playing anyone who's against the Panthers. But one other thing, Kendre Miller is injured, and Jamal Williams is he just looks like ass every time he gets on the field. So it's basically just Kamara and Taysom Hill back there. If you guys don't know, he takes some running back snaps away, so that's exciting. A lot of goal line packages. Also, Derek Carr coming back. That's good for Taysom Hill because it'll make the offense better. They're in the red zone more. He's utilized a lot in the red zone. So we've seen him get into the end zone 2, 3 times before in a week. So I wouldn't be surprised if that happened again. Um, yeah, so that's all the picks I have. Tonight's game, I'm hoping part of me wants to just get absolutely shit on because Rogers, this is too funny. I used to love Rogers, can't stand the guy now. So let's see them go down a little bit more. But I do want a good game. We've had a lot of bad games this year. So let's get a good Thursday night primetime game. Um, that's about all I got. So happy Halloween, everyone. Good luck this week to everyone in your fantasy football leagues. And I'll see you guys next week. All right. Peace.